thank you for being on the podcast. It's an honor.
Thank you, Archana.
It's really, I was doing this podcast, and when I completed my 50, I said, what change can I bring? Which was missing probably in my earlier podcast. And I said, I need to talk about the life, the background, and the place that people are coming from, and not only talk about their present profession, how, they're changing their lives with it, but where are you coming from? Because people like you who are in the coaching sphere would understand this, that all the things that we don't process or bring forward, because we feel this is my limiting belief, as we call it. It comes from our childhood, or some things that probably have happened before. So it's very important to know that how we have dealt with those things, come out of it. And when I read your story, I want to tell everybody, I'll give you a short introduction about you, Himanshu, before we set off, because it's very important and a very impressive story that you have. So Himanshu, you were born in Aligarh. You did your schooling and of course college also from Aligarh Muslim University. Very interestingly, you started with a career as a geologist and then joined Indian Army. We will talk a lot more about that. And now a coach. So really, I have not met anybody with such diverse platforms in one's career, whether it was by choice or default. We will also talk about that. And you started from a very small town, a middle class setting with very modest means, of course, and your journey through, and that's what we are very intrigued with, and I want to talk more about it. And the typical failures, lack of direction, resources are necessary to gain the advantage in life. The story about progress, growth, and transformation. I think you're bundled up into a lot of these things. In the present moment, of course, you are leading leaders of the world. You are strategizing for them. You are one person who shows people that transformation happens from within, and a lot can be dealt with. So I've seen a lot of your videos where you talk about being in nature, how you align yourself, when you really talk about the mountains, the rivers, the nature around us, and what can we derive from there. So very impressive about that as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for this time. It's beautiful to have you, because I do not think 45 minutes will do justice to your life and what you do, but here we begin. So Himanshu, my first question to you is, coming from a very small town and this journey, how has that transition been with different phases? So we'll break it down. So let's do the first phase of your life as a geologist, and then we move to the army, and then we move to what you're doing right now.
Sure. Thank you, Archana. It's an absolute joy to be here. And what you're doing is amazing, because life is unfolded for us, but someone else is required to get the nuggets of that life as it happened, so that the wisdom could be used for many other people. I wish I had the chance to listen to someone who would have been recorded and spoken by you. It could have given me insights for future. Really happy to be here, Archana.
Thank you so much. And I want to know, of course, the starting of your journey, coming from a small town like Aligarh, geologist, how did you get to that profession in the beginning of your career?
But to be honest, I didn't do very well in my class 10th. And as a result, you would not get that typical combination of PCM, physics, chemistry, and maths. And that I did my schooling from Delhi. So I moved back, and I'd heard a lot about AMU, which is a good university. Right. So those days, what you get in life is more important than what you aspire, and you may not get it. So I applied, and I got this combination of geology, physics, and maths. And I thought, let's make an entry into this beautiful university and then see how it goes. Right. And more I started learning about the subject, I started enjoying. It's a fascinating subject because it teaches us three things: exploration, right. It teaches us excavation, it teaches us how to do an expedition. And all these things I picked up subconsciously, which I do it as a coach when I work with others. So that's how I landed in geology. And I think I came in contact with one of the professors who's no more. His name is S.N. Balla. And the way he would come, teach, and take us deep into the subject. It was a wonderful storytelling. He would leave us mesmerized. And I used to think those days that one day I would be a teacher like him or a professor like him. But trust me, it took me 30 plus years of hard operational managerial life to eventually do what I do now, which is teach, transfer, and transform. So that's the role geology plays.
Very nice. And tell me about, of course, how you're bringing it to life now also has a lot to do with your switchover of a career. So you were enjoying this as I hear you. But then
Yeah,
why did you switch to something so dynamic as being in the army? Because, I mean, we normal people do not think such drastic transformations as far as career shift is concerned.
I think multiple facets. But the first one, which I use as larger theme of life, which is two things can change the course of your life: the books that you read and people that you meet. So initially, I did not read too many books, but meeting people brought me chance encounters. So actually, I met two young captains of Indian Army on New Delhi platform number 19. They also incidentally happened to be from AMU, and I knew they're from engineering college. When I saw them lovely olive green, I got fascinated and reached to them and tried to have a conversation that how come you guys are here. So obviously they spoke very highly about the choices that they made and how they are enjoying. And they also said, when I said, can I also get there? They also kind of put me down or dissuaded, no, 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 you can't make it. It requires men of steel to get there. So a factor of both the fascination, what I heard from their story, and someone dissuading that you can't do that, definitely played a very key role in making a bold choice to get there. But if I go back, I always loved the war movies, some of the old classics, Indian movies and Western war movies. So there was a kind of intrigue factor, how the story unfolded. And of course, 71 war, we were very young, but we used to hear about blackout, etc. So some of those early experiences, the famous song of Devanand, मैं जिंदगी का साथ निभाता चला गया, the way it's shot, I think that was deeply etched in my mind. So a couple of factors eventually motivated me to get there.
And then the army life, tell me, from being a civilian to an army, the thought of it is the first flashes which come to me is like, oh my God, rigorous. I don't think I can do it. They will really squeeze you to the hardest of your physical potential. So with all those, didn't it worry you that will you be able to do it or not?
Yeah, I think it's like this. You land up there, you face the odds and the rigor. You do wonder, have you made a right choice? You feel like quitting. So one goes through all those emotions. See, from a university life where I would not have joined the first class anywhere before 10 o'clock, get up coolly and then walk into the class. And from there, switching it to getting up at 3:30 and the cold winters of Dehradun and all kinds of rigor and physical fitness. Also, the way the requirements were there, I did not have those things. So everything was at a stretch. Mental faculty, physical endurance, resilience, emotional capacity. I think Army stretches just at the right time. And
Right.
those 18 months of training, I think, prepared me to face many more odds and challenges of life. Would I like to ever substitute that? The answer is no. Because who I am, what I am today, it's like a metallurgical furnace. So you
Right.
are a raw ore, if I borrow from geology, and then you are baked in the furnace to a strong alloy, which can take the rigors of life. So yes, everything was really rigorous, but then there were many other moments of glory, joy, the joy of doing things which you otherwise would not have done. So all those things kept me going. The army does also bring a lot of charm and glory. And I remember we used to be fascinated by the forces requests that would come at 9:30, all the English music, the class, the charm, the chivalry. So it's a complete package which kind of inspired me to stick there.
So would you tell the generation of today you must go through an army cycle?
I think if everyone gets to do at least the training part, the 18 months, and they're purely optional, I think this country would really go a couple of notches above in terms of accountability, sense of discipline, how much you can get out of your life by being resilient, sense of discipline, accountability, ownership, credibility, and the way you would treat people. So many things, and that's the stock of country which is suffering today. So if people can have the experience, I think it will help them in the times to come.
Beautiful. So looking at how you did it, it was more like, okay, you plunged into it and then you said, okay, let me take it head on now that I'm here. You thought of quitting, but you didn't. And you stuck on to, and then today, this, when you look back, you said this was probably something that I will never want to exchange this for. So tell me,
Yes.
many a times I've heard that you must plan your life. You must, before you get to something, you must, do all the background checks and be prepared, and you should know the pros and cons. But what's also worked for me is that I plunged into something. I left my corporate life without thinking much what I wanted to do. And a beautiful platform like SecondAct came on. Of course, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of crying, howling, like all those very anxious moments to say, what have I done? But at the same time, something better came out of what I didn't expect. What has your experience been? Should we plunge into something and then take it head on, or should we really plan something? What is your yeah.
See, as a coach, I'm constantly discovering that life is not binary, or it's not to be lived through one particular lens. I often give this example, like sometimes you got to look before you leap,
Right.
but sometimes you got to leap before you look, and you got to develop the discretion when to do what. So maybe 1986, I think I leapt before I looked. Because if I had pondered and considered little more, probably I would have chickened out.
Yeah.
But many years later, when I was in War College, there was a Navy SEAL guy who had come to deliver a guest talk in the War College. And he had lost his legs in Iraq War. And now he was a Bain partner, senior Bain partner. So after quitting the army because he was not good for there, he did his MBA from Harvard Business School. And he saw himself in a different avatar. So his coming and meeting and delivering talk then prepared me for another trigger, which is to move to the corporate. And the trigger was planted. I knew that I cannot make a leap now. Now I need to look and plan.
Right.
So over the 5-6 years, I really prepared very deeply and hard. I would have read maybe 300 plus HBR articles, 80 Gurney reports, McKinsey, BCG, financial reports, was marathon preparation, because I was determined that this is not one life which should only be surrendered to one domain. So how can I prepare?
Right.
And somewhere I love a typical Greek story where somebody will start as a student, then he will join as a warrior. He'll come back and join Senate.
Right.
And then he'll join Politburo or a scholar and philosopher. So why not so many avatars in one life?
Beautiful.
So I did both. Sometimes I plunged and sometimes I deliberately planned. Today, I'm a strong believer of vision. I often say in life, creating future is a combination of two things. Number one, you got to have a vision.
Right.
And secondly, you got to have ironclad rituals, because vision without rituals will not manifest.
Wow. Yes. That's very deep, I have to say. But when I was also reading something that you had sent me before, what I liked was that you speak a lot about finding your why. And through a vision, what you just spoke, it's not that easy actually. Like at least for the last 26, 27 years, while I was working in a very in very stable jobs and doing my best and really performing well, somewhere this why was never defined for me, until I really took that time out. I actually spent the time with myself and I said, okay, now what do I do from here on? I need to
Hmm.
define it. I need to make it more worth it. It's only one life. And this came to me very, very late. How do you think one should? And I'm sure that a lot of people are still struggling or don't even have in the periphery of defining a why. So, how should we start? And like, how do we get to people actually asking, why should I do something? Or why am I even living? Or what is my really bigger why?
Yeah. Firstly, Archana, there's nothing ever late. It happens when it is due. Okay. We may see late and early is all comparative.
Right.
Your experiences, your awareness, the people who you come in contact with, they all bring you triggers. And if we are mindful of those triggers, then we can really notice and pay attention to those triggers. Coming back, this is not serendipity that one fine day under a Bodhi tree, you get a enlightenment that this is your why.
Right.
Figuring out why is a structured exploration.
Mm.
It's a set of asking questions and staying with these questions. Questions like, what does universe want to achieve through me?
Mm.
And many people would discard this question.
Yeah.
What am I really cut out for? Am I just an act of procreation, or have I come in this world with a sense of purpose? Now, both are right.
Beautiful.
Depends on what you choose. You choose the first one, you will live a normal life. And when you choose other, that's also a normal life. But the impact of both the lives and trajectories would differ. So the longest journey is inwards. And
Mm.
it must begin with question that who am I?
Right.
What am I really meant for? It's a question of identity. Marshall Goldsmith has done some wonderful work on identity. He said that we are a sum of four kinds of identity. Number one, remembered identity, what we remember from our past. This is about past and self. Then reflected identity, what others told about us and what we heard from them. Then programmed identity, people are programming you, oh, you can't be an engineer, you can't be a doctor, you're only good for this.
Right.
And we take everything subconsciously on our neural pathways. Now, awakening happens when we start questioning the very basic beliefs that have got us here. I often say people are product of experiences, but experiences have a shelf life too. And somewhere, those seeds have been planted of your why. Are you noticing them?
Right.
Like when I look back, maybe when I was 3 years old, one fine day, my mom caught hold of my bag and she said, why your bag is so heavy? And my bag had full of books because I had fascination for books. Even those books, I could not make any head and sense. I just wanted to feel very nice having a set of books. Isn't that an indication that
Right.
books are going to have a very important chapter in my life?
Yeah.
Then in my university, I used to really love the way a particular professor would teach. That's a sign that maybe you are meant for teach, transfer, and transform. But none of those things I did for first 25 years.
Mm.
So what does that mean? It means going back and asking why certain things happen in your life, what's the meaning they have for you in the future, and then constructing your future.
Right.
So this is how you could do. I often take people in offsites on this retreat on Discover Your Purpose. And I use strong frameworks to help them guide through.
Himanshu, we need to do this together because we take them for retreats saying, discover your second act. And it's literally the same. If you don't know the
Yeah.
purpose, how will you discover inner potential inside you?
So, Archana, there are always some weak signals which are giving us indication. It's up to us to amplify those weak signals. And that's where the clarity emerges for future.
Right. I mean, it's also that, when you meet some people like Marshall Goldsmith, okay, you were lucky that also, I would say also God signals sometimes that you also come across a lot of people. And that's why this podcast is so important, because while we are not able to meet them physically or, like one-on-one, but we literally hear somebody's life story, somebody what, impacts people had throughout their life, which changed their course of life, where they could find a bigger purpose. So I hear that, of course, the meeting with Mr. Goldsmith made a bigger impact on your life. And was that the starting of your coaching journey?
Yeah, let me build on this by saying, I'm going to repeat my quote, 2 things can change the course of your life, the books that you read and people that you meet. I actually met 5 people in my life who changed my life irreversibly.
Wow.
Number 1, those 2 young captains on New Delhi platform.
Right.
Then that Navy SEAL guy who I met in War College. Then I met a UN official who was responsible for me for my UN stint. Then I met Mr. Ramadurai at Heathrow, London, which led me to come to TCS. And then I took a team of top leaders for a program on innovation to Tux School of Business, where I met Vijay Govindrajan. And through him, I met Marshall Goldsmith. So what I'm sharing with you, it's a combination of chance encounters and intentional choices. In all the 5 cases, they could just have been a simple encounters. I would not have done anything. But what you do with those chance encounters, and you make those intentional choices, and you start wondering, oh, can I be like him? Can that be my future? So only when you start questioning or exploring those questions, then something magical happens.
Mm.
So when I met Marshall Goldsmith, he was taking a session with one of the class, the MBAs or something, the board outside, what got you here did not get you there. I entered the class unannounced, and he asked me upfront, are you sure you're supposed to be here? And I said, you never know, only future will tell. That's how I responded, and he quite liked the answer. And then I asked my friend Clark Allen that, how can I spend time with this gentleman? He said, oh, we are having a dinner in the evening, you be my guest. And that's how I happened to sit with him in the car to the hotel. And that's where he asked a question, Himanshu, what would you be 5 years from now? At that moment, intuition plays a very important role. And I said, I'll be in your footsteps. So intentional choices are equally important as chance encounters are. So the message to the people are, firstly, be in this world, meet people, reach out to people, learn what they are doing, pick their ideas, build connection, build conversation. You never know which of these conversations can meaningfully unfold into a new possibility.
So true.
Make sense?
Very much. And I'm hearing every bit very, very carefully. And thank you for sharing. I mean, it's not that everybody also shares so openly and gives out all the nudges. So I really appreciate that. And I'm sure people who are hearing us, there is so much to learn from.
I'm not allowed to take it to grave, so might as well give it away.
Not everybody thinks like that as well. We sit on huge pots of gold. So I was just hearing the story, which, a dear person whom I follow on Beyond channel called Palki Upadhyay. She brings in stories of relevance. She brings in news in a different way with a lot of research analysis. I love the way she does things. And she brought out a story about how much money is lying in RBI unclaimed, because people do not like to share while they're alive, and then they don't disclose, and then there is huge pot of money sitting there. So I'm just coming from there, that you never know, people want to take it to the grave, I guess, and then you don't know what
Yeah.
to do with it. So sure, thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. So okay, so then a Bain happened after your, so no, coming back to your army life. Okay, so how many years was that, and why did you, I know that of course you switched over to Bain after that, but like, why did you think of this transition after you were getting really a lot from that life, and it transitioned you completely?
No, I didn't shift to Bain. The Bain
Okay.
was an inspiration for me to choose another career. And
Okay.
that's where I landed in TCS to head the strategy and leadership development.
Okay.
But what's your question if I hear it again?
So I said, why did this transition happen of leaving army then?
Yeah, I think the part of that is triggered by that conversation from that Bain guy, the Navy SEAL fellow.
Okay.
It gave me a kind of a possibility that there's another shade of my life which I can discover. And at that point of time, I was also getting intellectually stimulated. And I wanted when to give vent to my creativity. I wanted to teach. So a combination of these things gave me that maybe my time here it's over and I need to find a new territory, a new iceberg where I can impact completely a different world. So it's like you are finding that, okay, this is not giving you the real stimulus that you need for future. And I just noticed that mindfully. And I try to explore what's the message for me in future? What am I really cut out for now? So it's a combination of these things. I was doing extremely well in the forces. And I did probably all the credible things that a high professional or a career guy would have done. But it's a combination of, is that still enthusing me, or is it something else that I'm driven towards? So I think it's a combination of what I'm now driven to, what excites me, what I want to read about, what I want to learn about, what I want to disrupt about. So it's a combination of those interests which are creating a strong pull for me. And I decided to leave at the peak of my career. I often say, guys, the best way to stay relevant is to disrupt when you're at the peak of something.
Wow.
Because thereafter it's plateau and then you go down to the valley. So renewal happens like this. As penguins, if we are sitting on an iceberg which is melting, not because it's not relevant for others, for you. So then you need to find a new iceberg where you can lead another healthy, impactful life.
So I also hear you saying that risk-taking ability is something which is also a friend of yours. How do we build on that? I mean, everybody doesn't have that risk-taking ability. We are always very fearful people, so.
Yeah, I use this line very often, let risk be your best friend. And risk can be planned. See, I have a wonderful acronym which I created for risk. See, from the distance, the risk looks scary. But when you get closer to the risk, you find there are certain things that are doable. So for me, risk, R stands for resources.
Okay.
If we have resources, we can take the risk. I stand for innovation. If we don't have resources, we still want to take the jump. How can we innovate to build resources? S stands for safety net. 9 out of 10 people will take the risk if the safety net is visible to them. And K is the knowledge about the uncertainty. And I often give this example that 20 years ago, no one was doing the bungee jump because they knew that if they fall, they will die or break. So what happened? Innovation happened. Resources got built in terms of the harness that you could put on and see that no one is dying. that harness acted as a safety net for us. And then we could now see the thrill and the joy or the adventure side of that. And the knowledge that if we jump, you're going to come back safe. Nothing's going to happen. So resources, innovation, safety net, and knowledge prepare us for taking the risk. So get closer to the risk.
Nice.
Use the new definition of risk, which I operationalize.
Right.
Like when I left a flourishing career in TCS, what I thought, financial risk. I said, okay, to maintain my current lifestyle for next 2 years, what's the kind of financial resources I need? And once I had planned and visualized, it became easier, the conviction became stronger that you could take the plunge. But for that, you have to embrace risk. You have to fall in love with the risk. That's why this line, let risk be your best friend.
Beautiful. I will always remember this. Thanks, Himanshu. I am very inspired by this acronym that you use, and it's very well placed. So thanks for sharing that. I also know that, when I talk to you, that what do you exactly do? You say that I enable people to find themselves, accept themselves, challenge themselves, and rewire and then play. I think this is another thing that I think you have established. You want to talk a little bit more about it because I think it's so powerful. Everything, it's a full life circle that you have defined here.
See, one of the reasons I'm in this business is why should all the creativity happen in the West? That's what inspired me to create COSM. And the mission of COSM is to groom strategic minds who can deliver bold impact. And I realized that what am I doing or what I can do? And whatever I can do with others, have I tasted and tested the success of that on myself?
Right.
So this is where I ended up creating my coaching model, which is based on 5 steps. Number 1, we got to first find ourselves who we are, what our roots, what beliefs have shaped us, what experiences have kind of formed us. So that's where find ourselves comes in. Then the question that, okay, which part of who we are, we need to accept that we can't change. Right. Like I can't change where I studied, how I was brought up, which society I grew up, what financial setup I grew up. I cannot change that.
Right.
So acceptance is often the path for awareness for future. So after find, accept, then comes, okay, do I just accept it or is there a portion which I can challenge?
Right.
Because the renewal is rooted in challenge. All the career shifts that I've had, they are actually rooted in challenge. So this question, which part of me, my life, I can challenge? And Archana, when we are challenging, some rewiring is bound to happen.
Yeah.
The rewiring of neurons, rewiring of how we think, rewiring of how do we respond. So rewiring is a very important part of life of growth. Right. And once we have rewired ourselves, obviously now we are a new version of ourselves. So then you play yourself. Play with the newfound identity and reality. And many sports people like Viren Sehwag or Glenn McGrath, they were different when they started their career. I think their coaches work with them to help them figure out who they are, where they are most appropriate, where they are on song, where they are in Zen mode. And then a little bit of rewiring, challenging, got them to the groove where they were lethal or very effective. So that's the coaching model which I use with people, for myself, 5-step process.
Beautiful. And so because you've been working now in this sphere for a while, it's a constant process. It's not that ek bari kar liya, so now you're a change person on. So what is your advice for people? Like, is it like a constant thing that you need to do this exercise or keep these things in mind on a constant basis? How do you keep yourself motivated to do this time and over, because, habits, we have seen that for changing habits or changing mindsets, it takes a lifetime. It really does. It's a lot of work. Along the way, you're human. You will fall off to say, okay, you know what, I just can't do it. I'm just happy in the space I am. I can't do so much, and more. So what's your advice there?
See, as regards motivation is concerned, it comes from the ecosystem of triggers that you designed for yourself.
Right.
If the ecosystem of triggers is really ambitious, really purposeful, really disruptive, really challenging, you just feel like doing that because there is something that happens, which I call it the rub-off effect. So choose your company and setting, which is inspiring and motivating. The second thing is a strong ambition, not ambition for personal self, but ambition to make a positive impact.
Right.
That fires you like anything, where you are on a hunt for renewal of skills mindset. A question which I often encourage people, what no longer serves you? Or what no longer serves me?
Right.
So if you ask this question frequently, you will be able to audit, oh, these things are not serving me. And the question about how frequently one should do, the first is to be aware about such a framework. It's like in your bag and kit bag, that timely you can refer it and see, is it time for me to apply this framework again?
Right.
I think a period of 4 to 5 years is not a bad time to go back to the drawing board and see, am I really cut out for what I'm doing? Or is there a new me which is waiting to unfold? So a combination of a structured thinking, periodicity, and asking question, what no longer serves me, can actually motivate us to find the new we or the new me.
Yeah.
And 5, 6 years is just an indication. It could be 7 years, it could be 3 years. But Ashna, it's the surroundings and your conscious awareness that what's rooted in these surroundings for me. It's a combination of both that gives you the weak signal for future. लेकिन उसके लिए थोड़ा जुनून होना चाहिए. I love this word, junoon. And when junoon is combined with passion and purpose, I think opportunities themselves reveal.
So what you're saying is that, do we have to be always a self kickstart? Or is there some things around us that help us to be that way? Because to always be self-motivated is not the easiest thing.
Yeah. So I'm saying nothing substitutes self-motivation. But I'm not saying that you have to always be dependent on you for self-motivation. For that, choose your company, choose your surrounding, choose your environment. Shamanta Ghoshal has this wonderful concept in the video, the smell of the place, where he compares Fontainebleau with downtown Kolkata. And without any umbrage to any of these places, what he's trying to say that in monsoons, if you're in downtown Kolkata, you'll not feel energetic. But in the spring, if you're in Fontainebleau, वो फिजा में माहौल ऐसा होगा, it's going to fire you up for doing something which is very enthusiastic. So we have a choice that in which weather, where we should be to get the inspiration for being self-motivated. So stimulus and response.
Right.
We can design an ecosystem of stimulus which can fire up.
Right.
Or we can be so unaware that our surroundings are really sucking and we are not growing in that, and yet we don't do anything.
Right.
That's where the choice comes into play.
Yes, lots and lots of very.
Have I answered your question?
Yes. And yes, it's also putting me in a very thought mode, I would say, and a lot of introspective mode as well. Because what you're saying is that it's so true that, when we change the place also of where we are working, like it's a rainy day today. And if I was just in bed, just, tucked into my quilt and not wanting to get out, my mode of operation of like, of even feeling motivated to do something would be just like so dull. I take a quick shower, cold bath shower, and just like, sit in front of a very nicely designed chair and a table. Suddenly my mood changes, right? And I'm ready to go for the day. And these are the small things that we can do if we want to. But again, it has to come from, whether we want to do something about it or not.
Yeah. You would have heard this. We are some of 5 people around us.
Yes.
But we have a choice to choose which five people we can choose as company. And I'm not saying you discard your old friends.
Right.
But you create the company with a purpose and vision in mind. So when I wanted to be a coach, I chose who are the world's 5 people in whose contact I must come, with whom I should learn, to whom I should contribute also. It's never a one-way process. So once that clarity emerged, I got on a path to build those relationships. That's why it's an intentional choice.
But you also say that relationships first and outcomes later.
Always.
So should you just plunge into relationships and not think of the outcome that time?
Outcomes are not in your control. Actually, I have many such counterintuitive statements. One I call learning first, relevance later.
Right.
See, if you start thinking, oh, how this learning or course will come handy, 9 out of 10 times we could develop cold feet and we may not plunge ourselves there into that. But if the subject or the area is in sync with your vision and your subconscious interest, you learn. And then you see the magic. Universe conspires to make you successful. Right. Many years ago, I did a program on balanced scorecard from Kaplan Norton in London. And when I was doing some small consulting projects on that, this time I met Ramadurai. And a couple of things happened. And through a chance conversation, I landed in TCS to exactly implement balanced scorecard. So see, learning first, relevance came on its own. Many years later in 2017, 19, I did my design thinking from Stanford and HPI Potsdam. A significant amount investment.
Right.
But within 6 months, I got the money back because suddenly I realized the projects related to design thinking are coming my way.
Wow.
Same is the analogy with people. See, as long your values, your purpose, your alignment matches, you build relationship of value.
Right.
Outcomes will happen on its own.
And you talk about visualization, just like you said right now. So how do you do that? How powerful has visualization been in your life? And what do you recommend to people who have never done it?
Yeah, actually, I teach people in my purpose discovery workshop. It starts with something called a narrative for future. So everybody writes a narrative for future, which starts, oh, I see a future, borrowed from Martin Luther King, which is, I have a dream. So actually, I used to write down, oh, I see a future where I would be among the top 100 coaches. Oh, I see a future where I would be doing this, this, this. Trust me, Ashna, you will not believe that 90% of those things that I visualize have happened and they come true. But one thing which I want to highlight is pure visualization does not work.
Of course.
You got to visualize, and then you got to have your daily rituals and rigors to make things happen. It's like you building a castle, so one brick each day, right, to build it up. Right. So visualization works because you got to see it, you got to believe it, and you got to achieve it in a structured way.
Yeah. So, just to introduce a lot that, I probably haven't spoken about you, that you are a C-suite executive coach of Marshall Goldsmith. Like you said, you did a design thinking course, from Stanford. You did your Blue Ocean strategy for INSEAD, then global business strategy, Wharton, global innovation leadership, Tuck Business School, Balance Scorecard, Kaplan Norton, NLP ontology, mindfulness, Kabat-Zinn. I think the list is endless. You are also a Hogan certified practitioner. Please tell us, how do you do this? I mean, how do you get so much and more and still going on the path of learning? I have not even begun. Please tell me, where do I start?
See, I think the question, how do I end up doing something like this?
Yes.
So I think I read a lot on things, and then I browse a lot. And then I come across courses which fit in with my future. And one of the frameworks that I use, what is your operating space? So my operating space is leadership, strategy, and culture. So anything of interest and intrigue, if it falls into that space, I like to explore further. And in the process of exploration, I discover courses which could be of meaning to me. And I have a kind of thing that X percentage of money that I earn in a year, I invest in learning. For me, it's learning tourism. And people can choose whatever percentage they want. And this is something which I picked up from a book by Robin Sharma. He said that if you take out money from your wallet and invest in your learning, you will get money 3 times back. Now, this is not to say that I did because I wanted to earn 3 times. It just because my interest and future seem to be converging through that course and learning. I thought, let me take a jump and plunge. I have set out for my eyes to do a course on creativity. And maybe, Archana, that in my earlier days, earlier life, I didn't have the luxury to study a lot. So I thought, now I can afford, so I must learn. In fact, I often dream, if I didn't have to do anything in this world, I would have simply gone to any classroom and learned. One day anthropology, one day philosophy, one day on social science. बस exam नहीं होना चाहिए.
So
I would have just freaked out.
In between all this, you're also writing some books.
Yeah.
And everybody's writing books these days, to be honest. And I'm very inspired as well. But how do you make your books different from, or what's the inspiration to write these books? Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of 2 things. Number one, who you are writing for, who is your audience, how through your writing you want to change something for them positively, why you are the best person to write on that subject, what are the experiences, what authentic experiences have shaped you, those point of view, which will make meaning to someone else. So it's a combination of these questions which motivate me to actually articulate what has happened in my life, but with the purpose to serve someone. The books are not meant to serve my ego. They're meant to serve an audience so that their life can change. I'm also on the mission of simplification. How can I simplify things for people?
So all this, if you divide your time in 24 hours, in which I would say 8 hours of sleep, how are you dividing your time between your learning, between your coaching and changing lives of people, between your reading something because you are such an ardent reader? Also very intense, I would say, but we will come to a rapid fire round because I want to see the other side of Himanshu as well. So how are you dividing your day and your family? just now you had your PTM with, of your daughter. So I'm just wondering, how are you managing your 24 hours? Please tell us the mantra.
I think I work 16 to 15 hours in a day. I manage with 5.5 hours of sleep, but I sleep very sound. So I tire myself during the day. When I sleep, I just don't know what happens after that. And then automatically I wake up around anywhere between 4:45 and 5:50. Now, rest of the 15, 16 hours, where do they go? They go in three areas. Either I'm working with clients, or I'm preparing and creating something for future, or I'm learning so that I can generate new ideas, frameworks, and concepts. This is where my work is divided. And I learn through all these activities. So they are not compartmentalized. Like, for example, if I'm working with a person as a coach, the questions that the coachee brings aren't the instrument for me to learn. So while I'm trying to handle that question, I'm also learning something new. In fact, I'm grateful to 652 leaders who I have coached, because they would have asked probably 6,000 questions in their entire journey collectively. And those 6,000 questions have made me rich in many ways. On reading, I read 2 pages or 10 minutes a day. And I've written an article, Let Reading Redefine Your Life, where a lot of assumptions have been busted where people say, oh, I don't get time, or I can't finish a book, or my work does not allow me. So for my message to them or those people are, just read 2 pages a day. But I read 4 or 5 books together. Maybe 2 pages from philosophy, 2 pages from management book, 2 pages from something of Malcolm Gladwell or a biography. So what happens when I read diversely, each day I get a new idea and then connect the dots up. And Archana, when you read voraciously, where would this information go? In the mind is going to work together, cross each other's path to force you to think and create new ideas. And that's where all these lines that you would have heard, like, let risk be your best friend and learning first, relevance later, they basically born out of the thought experiments that were happening. Mm. So this is where I have the best job in the world, because each day I'm with a different person or a group of people or a solo person. And that is a very exciting and inspiring journey for me. And yeah, whenever I'm not working, which is a rarity, I'm always working, but working on the areas which I love. Otherwise, we take a lot of holidays and breaks. I travel a lot and I shoot videos on those places. And yeah, that's how I spend my life. Good or bad, I don't know.
It's beautiful. And I also see iconic people on your platform like Ratan Tata ji himself recently with you. What a moment, I would say. People like, just looking at it and hearing you both was such a moment for me. And I said, oh my goodness, this is something that everybody would want to do, get touched by Ratan Tata ji himself. So how was that experience, and what was that one learning that came out of that conversation for you?
Yeah, I think this is part of my project, which is called Journey of Legends. Actually, I had met Alan Mulally in 2017 or 18. He's a wonderful leader who was the CEO of Ford and Boeing. And I found him so humble and such a wonderful conversationalist he was. He gets the best out of people. And just by being in his company for an hour plus, I felt there was so much I could learn from him. So that chance meeting led me that how can I capture conversation or authentic story of people? This is where the idea of Journey of Legends began. And my interview with Mr. Ratan Tata is part of that series, Journey of Legends. And I'm going to have a conversation with many global leaders. And lot of people actually watched this conversation and they said two things. Oh, we have never seen Mr. Tara so comfortable sharing so joyfully. So the idea that how can I hold the space for people so that they feel like sharing, which otherwise they would not share normally. And through that authentic sharing, can we pick up one or two ideas to inspire the people who I work with, or those who watch by themselves, can they pick up an idea for their transformation? And coming back to what is that one thing, very difficult to answer, but one thing which I learned or rather relearned is how to stay humble despite so much of achievement. Again, being in the company or the man himself for those 45, 50 minutes, it just inspires you on one end. It also makes you humble on the other hand.
Which is so true. And I don't know how, I don't feel that I'm trying to just say it because you said it just now. But to be honest, this 1 hour with you, it's giving me the same feeling. I do not want to end this conversation. There is so much learning that I have got from this conversation, Himanshu, today. And I would love to continue it. But thank you for sharing from your heart, being as authentic as you can. And I hope that this platform also gave you that comfort where you could be open. And I'm trying to achieve exactly what you're trying to achieve with the icons. I'm trying to achieve with just anybody who has a story and can touch somebody's life. And that's how the second act can begin.
Thank you for making me feel like icon, although I don't believe I'm there anywhere. But as you rightly said, your questions, your genuine curiosity and interest made me reveal a part of me. And in doing that, I felt comfortable and I felt liberated. And I felt satisfied that maybe some of these ideas can act as those triggers or nuggets of wisdom for others to follow. Not follow the path that I followed, but the path that they would like to follow. So thank you for holding this space for me and making me share a part of my life, Archana. Truly, truly happy to be here.
So true. So just before we go, one last question, and then we have 5 rapid fire, which will be quick. So last question before we go is, of course, how do you discover your second act? A lot has come out, of course, but I want you to define it so that, you know, this is my, of course, go-to question. What's your second act and how do you define it?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about it because sometimes you do, but to articulate that as a process is always a challenge. But I think how do you define your second act is paying attention to that creative dissatisfaction that you have. So whatever you are doing well, you are happy. But there is something which is not being addressed. And I call that the elements of creative dissatisfaction. I would suggest that when you sense those creative dissatisfaction, don't sit, but deepen your inquiry. What am I really not satisfied about it? What is it that I can do which can make me come fully alive? What would I like to read, learn, teach, transfer? So when you start paying attention to those weak signals, you are motivated to redefine your value proposition for future. So your second act is nothing but a redefined value proposition. A value proposition which fits in with time, reality, now, not with your past. So if I have to sum up in 3 statements, identify, acknowledge, recognize your creative dissatisfaction. Amplify that to see what kind of new value proposition you can stitch. And third is, once you discovered your new value proposition, what would you do by sitting on that? So who you can take it to? Wow. In the end, I believe there are 3 levels of living. One is survival level. Second is success level. And third is significance level. And Archana's significance comes from service. with your value proposition, when you serve an audience or a context, you gain significance. And that's where your second act or third act or fourth act will actually become alive.
Thank you. Wonderful. These are going to go in a book, maybe when I will write one day. I'm going to compile a book with all my second act interviews and taking the best out of them. And this will come out on.
You are building a wonderful treasure, I must say.
It is, thanks to, of course, somebody like you who's on this platform. So now quickly, 5 rapid fire. What does Himanshu can't stay without? Rapid fire.
Books and reading. Books and reading.
We need some quirky answers here, Himanshu. Books and reading, we have heard many times. Now, the second question is, if Himanshu had to really go on a date, who would that person be?
I never thought about that.
ये platform है public का, but हम इसमें फिर भी, I mean, now we are in an age, I feel always now comfortable when somebody's giving me a compliment or something. It's just now I'm like, in the mid of everything, it doesn't matter. It's
maybe Michelle Obama.
Oh yeah, I know, what an icon. Okay, so next question is your favorite book.
I don't have a favorite book, but a book that I love most is a book called How Stella Saved the Farm. It's a beautiful parable written by Vijay Govindarajan on innovation. It's very simple, very inspiring. Okay.
One line that you use the most.
2 things can change the course of your life: the books that you read and people that you meet.
Okay. All right. And one last thing that you want to tell to our listeners, our viewers, what is that one last thing that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I think a lot of people in this world give a lot of importance to failures in life. And my message to them, guys, failure is just a learning moment. Failure is not defeat. So find inspiration from failure. It's a step to the success. That's my message to people.
Okay, beautiful. And thank you so much again. And maybe keep discovering our inner potential, our second acts, thanks to people like you. So Himanshu, what a great day. What a great start. I cannot thank you enough.
Truly honored to be here. I hope it serves your purpose. And I learned a few things, that how sharing actually can make us discover new insights about yourself. So I'm going to encourage others also to do that. Thank you, Archana, for having me on your SecondAct show.